Well, it's nearly 9 in the morning here, which means something happened last night to stop me from recording the video. And yeah, it was a pretty long day in the end. But I'll talk you through it. So in the morning, it started off quite nicely, quite pleasant. The rain from the day before had cleared up really nicely. So woke up with a really nice dry tent. Sun was beaming. Um, I had some breakfast on the lake, and there was like a family of swans there, which were really nice to watch. The kids were running around playing and looking at the swans, and actually the kids were too loud actually because there was a family camping right next to me, which I knew could be a problem, but I wanted to put my tent somewhere which was kind of higher in case the water went down and flooded the other areas. So that was the only place I could find. So it was next to a big family. There was probably, I don't know, 10 people in that tent, and yeah, the kids were like up and screaming at like 7 in the morning, like running around my tent and stuff, which was a bit tedious. But how can you be angry at kids for having fun? um, so yeah, I was having breakfast. Everything was good. Went to pack up my tent, and there was a couple next to me who had said a few words to me when I arrived, who seemed quite friendly, and I ended up chatting with them for probably 20 minutes. They were a Dutch couple, retired, so a bit older than me, and talking about my trip and different things to see in Germany and what they were doing, all this stuff, and they were really nice. Actually, it was really nice to chat to them. I didn't catch their names, but you know, as I said before, it doesn't you don't sometimes you don't need a name. It's just nice to chat. Uh, and yeah, the older lady, she recommended a book to me, which was topical to Croatia, called The Hired Man. So I've added that to my reading list, and I said my farewells, and then I headed off. Paid my bill, of course, which was difficult because only the manager at the camping ground spoke English, and she was like up on the roof renovating or something, so she had to come down to settle my bill, which I felt a bit bad about. Yeah, it seems like most people here in North Germany speak mainly German and maybe a little bit of English, which is quite different to Scandinavia, particularly in Denmark, which is just over the little ditch, which English is very, very good there. Anyway, so the day went on. The sun was out. It was really really nice, actually, really pleasant riding along little streams and lakes, and doing a lot of yeah, kind of like forest paths, kind of dirt roads, which I really enjoy. Yeah, good to get off the roads for a bit and yeah, out into the wilderness. So that was really cool. I was really enjoying that, and I stopped for lunch on the side of a lake, and um, yeah, had my lunch there, which was really good. And there was a couple from the ferry on the way over to Rostock, here in Germany. They were the ones with like the cool like bikepacking rigs, and they were actually the ones checking out my bike as we were getting off the ferry. And I had my head down, I was eating, and then I looked up and I saw that they had ridden past me, and then um, the guy in the couple, he kind of like looked over his shoulder and like gave me a wave and a nod. So he remembered me too, but um, again, they didn't want to stop, so they were going. I was hoping I might catch up with them, but no, I sat for too long having lunch. Um, yeah, I thought they could have had some interesting things to say, but no, they were gone, and I thought it was probably time that I should get back on the road as well, because I had planned to do um, about 100k yesterday, because, well, first of all, I had told the Dutch couple in the morning that I usually do about 100k, so I felt like I had to today, or yesterday rather, and also because the sun was shining, and I just thought, it's flat here, the sun's good, weather's good, like it's time to put in some Ks. So anyway, I was riding for a while after lunch, and oh yeah, at one point there was I was riding on kind of like I don't know what you call it, like a little mound with like a bike track in the middle, and this was like fringing the edge of a lake. And as I was riding, I saw up ahead there was a family of swans sitting right on the side of the path. And so like think of it like this: there's like a little, it's like steep on both sides. I'm on the top. There's a family of swans here, and like, I know swans can be quite protective when they're around their young chicks, right? I've had a few experiences in the past. Some of them are seared into my memories as childhood trauma, getting attacked by geese and swans and such. So I was like coming up to this family of swans very tentatively, and then as soon as I got within like, 6 meters or so, the mama swan kind of like stopped and like put her head, and her neck was really long. She was looking right at me, and I just kind of slowly tried to get past, as far away as I could without falling down the other side of this ledge. And straight away, the mum started hissing and all this stuff, and I just freaked out, and I just tried to get out as fast as I could, and I nearly fucking fell down the cliff the other side to get away from this swan. But it was all good. I made it through. Bloody yesterday I got stung on the neck by a wasp. I was just riding, and I felt something on my neck, and I just tried to brush it off, and it was a wasp, and it stung me as I touched it, and it hurt for a little bit, and now it's just super itchy, and it's been itching the last like day, so that's why I keep scratching my neck. It's not as bad as when I got stung by the wasp in New Zealand, and that was on my butt cheek, and I had a big big lump on my butt for the next week almost. So I was riding. I had lunch, and then I was about 3 in the afternoon. I was starting to feel pretty tired. So I stopped at an Aldi, which we also have in Australia, but it was cool to see one in its natural habitat here in Germany. And I got a Red Bull and some pastries and stuff, and some more supplies for dinner. And I just went and sat outside and had a bit to eat, and just kind of chilled out for a second because I was just feeling tired. And I think it was kind of fortuitous timing, because at this point it just started raining a lot. The clouds rolled in, and then it just started pouring rain. So I was sitting under a shelter, and I was like, alright, well, it's probably a good time to take a breather, which I did, and the rain kept going, but it wasn't too heavy, so I put on my rain jacket, which I'm still wearing, and I pressed on, and I was riding for a while, and the rain got heavier and heavier, and eventually I put on my rain pants, and I kept going, and it got heavier and heavier, and I was still probably 30 or 40k from where I wanted to get to, which is a town called Warren. And so I kept going, and then I got a flat tire again on the back wheel. This time I was pretty calm because I knew I could fix it. So I pulled over in the rain on the side of the road, tried to find some shelter under a tree, and took the wheel off and took the tube out, and I found quite a decent sized hole in the tube. So great, patched that up. Thought that would be the end of it. Put the tube back on, put the wheel back on, and I was pumping it, pumping for probably 10 minutes, and the tire still wasn't full. I'm like, what's going on here? So I pumped it up, and then I was feeling it, and I just felt it, and it just was just deflating. And I was like, fuck, there must be another hole. So I took the tube out again, looked over the whole thing, and I looked over it for probably 15-20 minutes because I was too stubborn to get the tube, my spare tube out, because I knew there must be a hole in there somewhere. So I was determined to find it. I looked over, found another small hole in it actually, patched that one, tried to pump it again, still wasn't holding pressure. So I was looking again, and while I was doing this, another two guys rode up and they asked if I was a ride, and I said yes, just had a flat, and actually one of them had a flat as well. So he pulled over to fix that, and while I was fixing my tyre, we had a bit of a chat, and they were from Canada, and actually one of the guys was living in Trondheim, and they were riding up to Gothenburg, so they were going pretty much the same way that I had just come. So I gave them some tips, and one of the guys' names was Flo, and he spoke German, but he was also Canadian, I'm pretty sure. The other guy, I forgot his name, I'm sorry. He had a kind of an unusual name for a Westerner like me, although I guess he's also a Westerner. Anyway, I still couldn't get pressure in that tube, so I ended up eventually just taking it out and putting the spare one in, and resigned myself to fixing that tube later tonight when I had a sink or something, or a bucket. And so I jumped back on the bike and I kept going, and it was still raining quite a lot at this point. And I rode for another 10k, and then I had another flat on my rear tire. And at this point, I knew this wasn't good because it was still raining a lot. I was still probably 30k from where I wanted to get to, and I didn't have any spare tubes left. And I was running out of actually repair patches at this point as well. So luckily I had just ridden past a little shelter, so I turned around, went back to the shelter. I was able to spread out all my stuff, like make sure everything was reasonably dry, and I took the wheel off again. Took the tube out and looked over the whole tube, like millimeter by millimeter, looking for a hole. Couldn't see anything, and at this point I'm like, well, what do I do? It was probably about 6 o'clock at this point, starting to get dark. I didn't know how to fix this tube if I couldn't find the hole, didn't have any spare tubes. So I started looking around just for a bucket or something I could use to try and find the hole. So I was looking in people's bins, trying to find, maybe they'd thrown out, a bin or a bucket or something they could use. Couldn't find anything. And there were a few houses around, but because I'm terrible at asking for help. It's one of my biggest flaws. Knocking on someone's door and trying to ask them for help in English, because they probably wouldn't speak English, was kind of my last resort. So I was looking at, where was the closest accommodation, which was going to be at least 10k away. So that was probably another 2-hour walk with the bike. So it wasn't looking good. And then I sat down, I had something to eat, and I was just thinking what I could do to solve this problem. And I remembered that although I don't have any soap, because I don't know, I just find that soap is kind of unnecessary for me on these trips, I did have some shampoo. So I got the shampoo out of my bag, and I spread the shampoo around the tube to create some bubbles. And I did that for about 10 minutes, and I still couldn't really see anything. But I kept pumping the tube up and trying to find where the bubbles were coming out, and eventually I didn't see something, but I heard like a little whistle coming out of the tube. And so I put my ear down and I could feel the air coming out, and I looked, and there was a tiny little pinprick hole. So I cleaned the tube off, patched that hole up, put the wheel back on, and thankfully it seemed to be retaining pressure. So at this point it was like 7 o'clock, it was starting to get dark, and I still had a little bit to go to get to where I wanted to camp that night. Yeah, because unfortunately wild camping is not legal here. So I jumped back on the bike and I kept going, and this next section was actually, it was awesome riding. It was all through the forest, it was all trail, yeah, it was all off-road, which was really, really fun actually. And I was in like a bit of a rush to get there, so I was kind of speeding through it, but I was also quite nervous because, you know, this was the kind of road that I was going to get another flat on if I was going to get one. So I rode for another maybe hour and a half through the forest, but thankfully no more flats, and I made it to the campsite about 10k short of the one that I was going to get to, but I found another one which was a bit closer. I got there, everything was closed, we couldn't find anyone to talk to, you know, the bathroom was locked, so I just set up my tent under a tree, hopefully where it wouldn't get rained on too much, and I went to bed, and that was the end of the day really. And yeah, today I woke up early and it was not raining, and that was pleasantly surprising. So my tent was dry actually, so I was able to pack that up nice and dry, and then about 5 minutes later it just started pouring with rain. So now I'm sitting under another shelter having breakfast, trying to hide from the rain a bit, and it is just pouring out here. So I'm just going to wait here for a little bit, hopefully it clears up. But yeah, might be another day of riding in the rain. And I need to find a bike shop to get another spare tube because I'm getting pretty nervous about the ones I'm using. So yeah, it's been a long day yesterday, probably another long one today. Yeah, Germany's not really impressing me so much so far. It was supposed to be summer, what's going on? Alright, bye.